listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can always send an email to xzone at xzoneradiotv.com on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And visit our website at www.xzoneradio.com. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. Eastern until 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network and the all-new IPBN Radio Network. My guest this hour is a good friend of the X-Zone. Howard Bloom is his name. He is well known around the world for one of the most provocative and foresightful books. I call it the Rosetta Stone to what's going on in the Middle East, the Muhammad Code. And it's available online and Howard's website. When you visit it, be prepared to be amazed and to spend a lot of time reading and saying, holy cow, I didn't know that. www.howardbloom.net. Joining me now from the one and only Big Apple is my pal, Howard Bloom. And Howard, how are you, my friend?
Terrific. Aside from what's been happening over the last 2 days, the Orlando shooting, which is not the kind of thing that exactly makes either of us happy. By the way, the Muhammad Code, I've radically revised it. The old version is online, selling for $900 a copy, if you can believe that. And so somebody must want that book. Yeah. But the new version, which is called the Muhammad Code, How a Desert Prophet Brought You ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram, or How Muhammad Invented Jihad, is coming out through Feral House, publisher, in December. So be prepared for a massively updated version of the Muhammad Code. It's just that as you would imagine, I really wish this book were out there now, because it's very hard to understand what happened in Orlando without reading this book.
Well, Howard, once again, I must send my thoughts and my prayers to everyone down in Orlando. And we nearly had a situation like that in Los Angeles, but apparently the police were able to arrest the suspect, bring him into custody. They found traces of explosives. They found weapons, ammunition. What's going on, Howard?
Well, basically, let's look at the connections between San Bernardino and Orlando. In San Bernardino, you had two killers who had both spent time in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
In Orlando, you had a killer who had gone to Saudi Arabia twice, and the religious experts in the Muslim community say that's very unusual for a man of his age, that the obligatory trips to Saudi Arabia, the Hajj, is a once-in-a-lifetime event. The Umrah, which is a slightly less significant, is a once-in-a-lifetime event. So to go twice is very unusual. So there's a Saudi connection here. At the end of or toward the end of the San Bernardino event, the woman, the wife, texted a message pledging allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who is the caliph of the Islamic State. And Omar Mateen, the killer in Florida, also sent into 911 a message pledging allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. What's going on here is that, look, I have lots of Muslim friends. They are very, very, very important to me. Their interpretation of Islam is as a pluralist, tolerant religion. After all, they tolerate me. I'm a Zionist atheist Jew. They know that. And yet they are close to me. You know that the sheikh who made Dubai what it is today and rules Dubai and is also the Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates named a racehorse after one of my books. That the 11th President of India, Dr. Abdul P.J. Kalam, who is also a Muslim, called one of my books a visionary creation. And I've had lots of other support in the Muslim world. But the fact is that there's a different interpretation of Islam, that this peaceful, pluralist interpretation of Islam is not the only one out there by any stretch of the imagination. And it goes back to a simple fact. Holiness, propriety, and righteousness in Islam are based on following in the footsteps of the Prophet, of Muhammad, step by step by step. Now, Muhammad commanded 65 military campaigns. He personally led 27 of them. In the words of the Ayatollah Khomeini, who was one of the greatest Islamic scholars of the 20th century, he was ready. He killed, and he was ready to be killed.
All right, Howard, we've got to take we've got to take our first break. Please stand by. Exonation. Howard Bloom is my guest. www.howardbloom.net, and we'll both be back on the other side of this 2-minute break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Welcome back, everyone. Howard Bloom is my very special guest this hour. www.howardbloom.net. Howard, once again, this has been one hell of a week. We had what happened in Orlando, and then today the news is saying that the Russians have hacked into the DNC and have taken information pertaining to Donald Trump. Now, what is the connection with Russia taking this information as well as what is going on in Orlando? Are they connected some way, or is this totally two different subjects?
It's really two different subjects, except for one small connection. The Russians' allies are the Iranians. The Iranians and Russian allies are the Syrians. That's Bashar Assad.
Right.
And so you've got the Russians taking a side in the civil war in Syria, and that civil war in Syria involves ISIS, and ISIS is involved with the shooting in Orlando. So that's a long string of connections, but it's not directly connected. Because at the same time, there seems to be a very, very large group, roughly 50, so far as I've been able to ascertain, of Russian soccer hooligans who are in Europe right now, in France, attacking English soccer hooligans. And the training and the discipline of the Russian hooligans is very reminiscent of the guys from the Russian army in the Ukraine. Now, why Russia would send an officially sanctioned group of people to beat up other soccer fans is beyond me. And in fact, the odds are that they are not officially sanctioned, that they're just well-disciplined and very violent. But Russia's doing strange things. I mean, you and I have talked many times about the fact that Vladimir Putin is establishing one model of leadership in the world. Barack Obama is establishing a different model of leadership, and that Putin's model of leadership is proving very popular with people like Bashar Assad. And it's a beat the crap out of them style of leadership, and it's the style of leadership that is also espoused by, of all people, Donald Trump.
Today, President Obama went on air, and he was very critical.
He was furious.
He was.
Yeah, he was furious at Obama. I mean, at Donald Trump, and for good reason. Donald Trump has basically said that Barack Obama was an accomplice in the murder in Orlando, that somehow Barack Obama was involved with setting it up, allowing it, that there's something sneaky going on under the surface, something very akin to the paranoid fantasies that Obama was not born in the United States, that he's some sort of Muslim plant. Now, look, the right is trying to have it two ways at once. They say that Obama is a Marxist plant who is trying to turn America into a socialist state. And at the same time, they are saying that Obama is a closet Muslim who, in fact, is trying to turn the United States into a Muslim state. Well, I'm sorry, Islam and socialism are two radically different systems, radically different. And you can't have it both ways. But Donald Trump seems to be a walking fountain of ignorance. Now, sometimes even the ignorant get things right. And when he says that there's something going on here with Islam and we don't understand what it is, he's right. He is the last right. And what we don't understand is what we were getting to at the beginning of the program, which is the example that Muhammad has left behind of how we should all conduct our lives. And he loved beheadings. He loved torturing people. He loved mass murders and war crimes. And he was out to take over the world by military means. That's the legacy you see alive in Omar Mateen in Florida, killing 50 people because the verse of the sword in the Quran says to lay in wait for them in every stratagem of ambush and kill them wherever you find them, meaning unbelievers. Now, my friends who are Muslims don't believe that that's what that statement means. They believe that that statement only applies if you're under military attack.
Right.
But that's not the interpretation ISIS gives to this, or Al-Qaeda, or Al-Nusra. They take it point blank, that the more unbelievers you can kill in your lifetime, the faster your express ticket to paradise. And that's what Mateen apparently believed.
So how do we curtail this? Like, it seems that both camps are declaring open war on each other. You've got Donald Trump spouting off nonsense these days. I used to think that he would be good, but the more I listen to him and the more I study him, and after what he said about President Obama, and and it's no wonder Republicans are distancing themselves from him. Like, he's gone off the deep end.
He's gone off the deep end, and if you look at his track record, there are only two businesses he's ever succeeded in. One is real estate, and real estate goes up automatically. All you have to do is get a piece of property in the right neighborhood and hang in there, and you will be rich.
But on the other hand, he's a business person, right?
Not really.
He's not?
He's not a successful business person. Because, again, let's go back to this analysis.
Okay.
The other business that he's good in is promoting himself. And he does that well through reality TV, and he does it well through his books.
He's a media whore.
Yes, and he has tried roughly 10 other businesses, and he has failed at every single one of them. So Time Magazine counts 10 major failures in his life. Trump Steaks, Trump Ice, Trump Airlines. And the list goes on and on and on. Trump University, of course, which is the most controversial.
But he keeps trying. He doesn't give up, and that says something.
Persistence is extremely important in life. That's absolutely true. But then he goes on television and tells you he's a winner, and he claims that everybody else on planet Earth is a loser. Well, in what way is a guy who wins only 2 times out of 12 a winner? He could also be characterized as a loser. In fact, he could also be characterized as, to use another of Donald Trump's favorite words, pathetic. And he doesn't. Hillary Clinton made a very good point today. I don't agree with her about everything by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But she and Obama both made the same point in different words. If we start using the phrase extremist Islam, which you and I use all the time, over and over and over again, how does that change our policy?
It doesn't.
How does that change our military policy?
It doesn't.
Yes. How does it gain us allies, as Obama said today? Right. So the greatest asset Donald Trump has is his own big mouth, but he's not well informed about things.
But he is bringing people behind him.
Oh, he certainly is. But Trump White House, I'm afraid, would be par with Trump stakes.
Well, what about a Clinton White House? What would that be like? You just have 8 more years of Obama.
In fact, under Ronald Reagan, there were 10 million private sector jobs produced. That's a nice, hefty number. But under Barack Obama, whose administration still isn't over, there have been 12 million jobs in the private sector produced. And there's another president under whom 14 million new jobs in the private sector were produced. His name is Bill Clinton. We have a serious problem in the United States with medical costs.
Yeah.
And that's what Obamacare, which was actually Romney Care. It was conceived by the right-wing conservative Heritage Institute. It was put into operation in the state of Massachusetts by Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. And it was then adopted to become what we now know as Obamacare. It was adopted because from 1960 to the end of the Bush administration, medical costs went up from 4% of gross domestic product in the United States to 17% of the gross domestic product in the United States.
And how much of that was caused by illegal immigration?
Very little. Very little was caused by illegal immigration. It was caused by people like me, you and me, who have a tendency periodically to get sick, periodically to have physical problems, and need to go into the emergency room or see our doctor or get a medication. It's the 330 million or 315 million Americans having something called health problems, which we all have. It's a part of life that cause these problems. And it was under Democratic presidents, that increase leveled off. Under every Republican president, it skyrocketed. So we needed to do something to cap this increase in medical costs before it could bankrupt this country. Hillary Clinton was the first one in modern times to come up with an alternative medical plan. Hopefully, there are problems with Obamacare because some people are complaining about the fact that their premiums for medical insurance are going way up. Well, I got news for you. One of the problems with the system that Obama adopted from Mitt Romney is that it depends on the private insurance industry. And of course, the private insurance industry is going to do everything in its power to increase profits by jacking up the costs and blaming it on Barack Obama. Hopefully, Hillary Clinton, having studied this in great depth, knows how to fix this. I don't know, but there's no Republican plan.
That's if Hillary Clinton does get the White House.
Yes, if she does get the White House. If Trump gets the White House, he tells us he will abolish Obamacare, but he doesn't have a plan. He says, I'm not going to let people die out on the streets.
Sure.
Hey, that's a nice idea, but how are you going to implement that?
In all fairness, a number of the candidates, when they had these debates, were saying that they were going to abolish Obamacare as well. Like, it's not Trump, not the only Republican who is saying that, they should abolish it. It's been a standard line in the Republican Party ever since Obamacare was instituted. Right.
It's been one of Mitch McConnell's goals. It was one of John Boehner's goals. Yeah. It's one of Paul Ryan's goals. It's universal. But the basic problem we're looking at in the face this week is, what do we do about militant Islam?
Exactly.
And it is difficult to stop ideas. Look at all of the efforts that all kinds of countries made during the course of the 20th century and even during the course of the 19th century to stomp out Marxism, to stomp out socialism, to stomp out revolutionary socialism. Did they ever succeed? No. What they did was they contained it. So the real question is, how do you contain it? Well, I've got one simple, partial answer, because no answer is the whole answer. And that simple answer is go back to surveillance in mosques, simply having a tape recorder in every sermon that's given in a mosque. What did Omar Mateen, the killer in Orlando, Florida, have in common with the very first American to drive a suicide bomb truck in Syria and blow up a government installation? The two of them not only knew each other, they went to the same mosque. So the question is, what were the sermons given in those mosques? Because Friday sermons in mosques are not like Sunday sermons in churches. They are not about religion as we know it. They are about political and military strategy, because Islam is not a religion as we know it. It is as much a political philosophy and a military strategy as Marxism was. It's an all-encompassing totalitarian military dictatorship way of life. So we need to know what's being preached in the mosques of New York City and Orlando, Florida, and Toronto, Canada, and wherever else we can keep track of these.
Howard, stand by. I've got to take my news break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation. Howard Bloom is our special guest, www.howardbloom.net. And we'll both be back on the other side of this news break, right here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. And did you know that when you're out on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with yours truly and my good friend Jeremy Scott, who follows me here on the Mutual Broadcast Network and on the IPBN radio network. His show is Dark 30. And every minute of the day, you can also listen to the other great programming of the Mutual Broadcast Network simply by calling 605-562-4204. And that's courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet is needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free to you if you have unlimited minutes. I don't know anybody today who doesn't have unlimited minutes, so you're going to be safe there. All you have to do is pick up your phone and dial 605-562-4204. That's 605-562-4204 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. And speaking about Jeremy Scott and his show Dark 30, which follows us in about less than a half hour from now, his guests tonight are Rosemary Ellen Guiley and Darren Evans, and they're going to be talking about the Zuzu phenomenon. That's tonight on Dark 30 with Jeremy Scott, right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network and the IPBN Radio Network. Howard Bloom is our guest, www.howardbloom.net. And Howard, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to, my friend, because you're one of the very few people who don't flinch when I do this. Is there going to be more Islamic terrorism here in the United States?
It's inevitable. It's inevitable no matter who is president. And it's inevitable because this is a war that's been going on since 629 AD. In 629 AD, Muhammad sat down and wrote what he called his letters to the emperors. And he wrote to the rulers of the biggest emperors of his day, the emperor of the Persian Empire, the emperor of what was left of the Roman Empire, the Nagus of Egypt, the head of Abyssinia. And he told them all, I'm inviting you to Islam, and unfortunately, if you don't accept my invitation, I'll be forced to use other means. And those emperors must have sniggered and laughed because they'd never heard of Muhammad. They'd never even heard of the people he came from. But within roughly 30 years of his death, those empires had been denuded of their territories, and those territories had fallen into what would soon become the biggest empire in the history of the world, an empire 11 times the size of the conquest of Alexander the Great, 5 times the size of the Roman Empire, and 7 times the size of the United States. So Muhammad, in essence, declared war on the world, or he didn't quite see it that way. What he saw was the world was created by God out of a clod of mud, and since it was God's world, it should all belong to God, and it should all be ruled by God's own law. And what was God's own law? Well, the set of laws that Muhammad was given by God himself.
But what about the Ten Commandments that God gave Moses?
Well, Muhammad believed in those in his own funny way.
Okay.
He felt that the exact words of the Quran were given to the Jews, and the Jews had then tried to adapt those words to their times, and in the process, utterly corrupted ended up with the Torah, ended up with the Old Testament. But that is a corrupt version of the Quran, according to Muhammad. So his version is the version of what Moses was originally given by God, at least in his opinion. It's a tricky proposition, but if you were an idealist and I was an idealist and we'd grown up learning Islam and learning the example of Muhammad's life from kindergarten on, we would probably want to make sure that God's own law was applied to all of the citizens of the earth so that they too could go to paradise. That's a goal of liberating mankind. But unfortunately, the way that Muhammad laid out to do it is through what we call war crimes, through what happened in Orlando.
You know, you have many friends within the Muslim community. I have many friends within the Muslim community. And the friends that I have up here in Canada are just astonished. They're ashamed of what has happened in Orlando. How can these... I'm sorry, go ahead.
We and they need to stand up for themselves. There are people like Ayan Ali Hirsi, or Hirsi Ali, and Asra Nomani, who have called for the kind of reformation of Islam that Christianity went through in 1517 when Martin Luther nailed his 95 theses to the church at Wittenberg, the door of the church at Wittenberg. And since then, Christianity's gone through a radical change. Well, they feel that Islam needs a radical change. They believe that what Ayan Ali Hirsi, or Hirsi Ali, calls the Meccan tradition of Muhammad needs to be wiped out of Islam. And that Meccan tradition is the tradition of taking 317 square miles of territory a day through the most brutal forms of conquest you can possibly imagine. Muhammad led those brutal conquests. He led those war crimes in order to gain new territory. Ayan Hirsi Ali believes that should be taken out of Islam so that people who are modernists, pluralists, tolerant, pro-freedom of speech can live comfortably within Islam. And Asra Nomani believes the same sort of thing. And in Ayaan Hirsi Ali's book, she gives you a list of 100 other people in the Muslim world who believe in the same things that she does. But these people are under assault. They're under assault from within the Muslim community. Both of these women, Ayaan Hirsi Ali and Asra Nomani, have been attacked by the Muslim Student Association. Well, you think Student Association, that should be relatively harmless. The Muslim Student Association is a front for the Muslim Brotherhood, the same group that was just kicked out of power in Egypt roughly a year ago. And that Muslim Brotherhood is a jihadist organization, and the Muslim Student Association, though pretends to be local groups in local universities in Canada and here in the United States, is not. It is a group that is funded by the Saudis. We have to save people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali and Asra Nomani from the people within the Islamic community who attempt to discredit them and attempt to marginalize them. The people who believe in modernism, pluralism, tolerance, and freedom of speech within the Muslim community must become the dominant people in the Muslim community, at least in North America and Europe.
You know, you were saying before that putting recording devices within a mosque, putting the mosques under surveillance, that's just part of what, in my opinion, should be done. But are we not violating their rights to freedom of religion if we start monitoring their religious practices?
Not at all, because we have freedom of speech, and we're not talking about stopping the way that they speak. And we have freedom of assembly, and we're not talking about stopping anybody from going into a mosque who wants to go into a mosque. But we also have freedom of information. And the American public and the Canadian public should know what is being preached in the mosques of their community, because these Friday sermons have a great tendency to be political and military.
Now, aren't these sermons open to the public?
They're open to the public, but if you're not a Muslim, you are very unlikely to go to them. And what human being has the time? I mean, you could say Congress is open to the public, but what if we had no reporters ever covering what was going on in Congress? We'd cease to be a democracy. And we, at the very least, our police need to know what's going on in the mosques. What, for example, was going on in this mosque that produced both the first American suicide bomber in Syria and Omar Mateen?
But maybe it's not being done in the mosque. Maybe it's being done in separate cells away from the mosque.
But it's not being done in separate cells. Instead, it's being done very much in public. It's being done through a magazine like The Beak, which is published in English. That's the ISIS official magazine. And as I said, it calls for you to become a lone wolf and take whatever weapon is in your kitchen, and even if it's only a meat cleaver, and go out and start killing unbelievers. It goes on, well, Anwar al-Awlaki. It turns out that one of the people who inspired Omar Mateen was Anwar al-Maliki. You remember that name from several years ago.
Yes.
Another person that he inspired was the Fort Hood massacre person, the guy who killed everybody at Fort Hood, who killed
the American soldier,
a dozen people, an American psychiatrist in the military,
who was born in the States.
Who was born in the States, just as Omar Mateen was born in the States, just as all of the people who planned and executed the Paris massacres were born in Europe. So it isn't just the first generation of immigrants we have to worry about. We have to worry about their children, who then become radicalized. But Anwar al-Maliki presented himself as a moderate when he was still in the United States. But he was anything but. We have a lot of people disguising themselves as Muslim moderates who are not Muslim moderates. And they are discrediting the real moderates, and they are helping to curb the real moderates. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, for example, got a call from the president of Brandeis telling her that Brandeis wanted to give her an honorary degree. She then got a call 6 months later from the same president saying, I'm sorry, we can't give you that degree. The Muslim Student Association, remember, the Saudi-backed Muslim Student Association, has roused people on our campus to think that you are anti-Islamic and an Islamophobe, and they have pressured us into not giving you the degree. Asra Nomani was supposed to give a talk at Duke University. She was looking forward to speaking to the assistant or to the students. Asra Nomani was a journalist for the Wall Street Journal for 11 years. The Muslim Student Association said she was an Islamophobe and got her blackballed from campus. That blackballing was rescinded. She eventually got to talk, but she'd been so discredited by the Muslim Student Association that only 9 people showed up for her talk. We cannot allow these people to be crushed by groups like the Muslim Student Association, which is an international group that has Wahhabi points of view. Wahhabi Islam, which is the official Saudi form of Islam, is jihadist. It's jihadist. That's why there are so many Saudi connections to Omar Mateen, to just about everybody in the terrorist world.
All right, so if we start monitoring the mosques, don't we have to increase the security that so many people have been fighting against, because people don't want Big Brother watching them? They don't want the National Security Agency, as well as other intelligence agencies, to have the ability to monitor people. So where do we draw the happy line of medium? If you're saying, and I agree with you, that it's not only the first generations, but the other generations of the people who've come here, and you know, the parents may be okay, but their kids get radicalized. The internet's a big part of it. Why then are so many people dead against Big Brother watching, Big Brother listening? Because you see, the way I look at it, Howard, is that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear.
Well, that's not entirely true, because the state at any moment can totally crush you simply by bringing you into court. They can keep you tied up in court. They can discredit you so thoroughly that you lose your career. They can force you into hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal bills, and none of us normal humans have hundreds of thousands of dollars.
All right, but once again, if you have nothing to hide, why would the government go after you if you're not doing anything wrong?
Well, I think we need more, at least surveillance within mosques. I don't think that that's an infringement on freedom of speech. It's not really an infringement of privacy, because there's nothing private about a mosque. It's a public place where you gather with other people.
But what would Christians say, or what would the Jewish community say, if we put surveillance in synagogues, if we put surveillance in churches?
I don't think that that's a problem. I mean, maybe I'm being overly naive, because I love using Google, and I'm not afraid of any information that they're collecting on me either. I do get disturbed when the NSA, the National Security Agency, is collecting vast amounts of our telephone conversations.
Why?
Well, because those are private. When we go to a synagogue, when we go to a mosque, when we go to a church, that's a public
All right,
thing.
So what do you do? What do you have to be afraid of that unless you're saying something that is against the law, or you're planning to do something against the law? Do you really think the NSA gives a damn what you're talking about? If you're talking about boinking the lady next door, even though you're married, or if you've got financial problems, do you really think that the government really gives a crap?
Well, people are people, and the people monitoring your calls, if they take aspects of your sexual life, for example, I mean, you talk about your love life on the phone with if nobody else, your wife. And sometimes if you've been away from home for a long time, it can get very sexual. And you don't want people listening in on that.
But big deal.
That's private conversation.
Big deal. You're not posing a threat. You're not breaking any law. Do you really think that the government would give a crap about your sex life with your wife?
Well, J. Edgar Hoover used to care about that and used to use it to blackmail people. Unfortunately. So, but the bottom line is the question that you're bringing up, and it's a valid one. Where do we draw the line?
Yeah, exactly.
How do we protect our civil liberties? How do we protect what we call our freedoms? And at the same time, make sure that we do not become what the Muslim Brotherhood wants us to become. The Muslim Brotherhood issued a statement in 1991 giving its plan for North America. And it says...
Hold on, Howard, hold on here. Hello, Rob here. Whoops. Craig, thanks. Hello, this is Rob. How can I help you? Yes. Who is this? National Security Agency. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try and be more spicy. I'm sorry you guys find me so boring. Oh, okay, thank you very much, and you have a nice day. Oh, there you go. See, I got called by the National Security Agency because I'm too boring.
They really do care about us, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to read you what this statement, it's called the Muslim Brotherhood, an explanatory memorandum on the general strategic goals.
Okay, hold on here, Howard. I've got to take my commercial break in about a minute and a half. Will you have enough time to read it, or do you want to wait until we come back?
No, we'll read it when we come back. At any rate, basically, there is what would you call it? There is a thread in Islam that comes directly from Muhammad that does want to take the whole world. The whole world. And the people, it's represented in the United States by the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslim Brotherhood is dangerous. There is a book called Catastrophic Failure by a guy named Stephen Coughlin. It's essential reading because he shows you how the Muslim Brotherhood has been trying to subvert us in the United States.
Well, once again, I can only say that we have to draw the line, because if it's good for the Muslim community, then it's good for the rest of the people. Because this is the big cry that is going out. Equality. Equality for all, regardless of color, creed, ethnicity, or religion. So we have to, in my opinion, balance what power we are going to give back to the government in order to protect us. And if we don't, then we must be open to accepting our own consequences. We have to stop passing the buck.
I agree with you.
All right, stand by, Howard. We've got to take our break. Howard Bloom is my guest, www.howardbloom.net. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. And to the members of the NSA and CSIS out there, I'm glad you're enjoying the show. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Howard Bloom is our very special guest, a good friend of the X-Zone. I've had the pleasure of knowing this gentleman for over 20 years, and Howard, it's always a great pleasure talking to you, my good friend. But you were going to read us something, Howard, and we decided to hold it over until the other side of the break, so here we are, my friend. Go right ahead.
Okay, this is from the Muslim Brotherhood, which has about 27 front groups in the United States, and is actually the very same group that took over Egypt after the Egyptian Revolution, that threw out the Egyptian leader, and that was then thrown out of power. It's an international group. And here's what it says about its goals, the general strategic goal for the group in North America. Members of the Muslim Brotherhood, it says, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad. A grand jihad eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. What does that mean? It means they want an end to Western civilization. They want us to take apart Western civilization by our own hands. They want to use our own guilt about imperialism, colonialism, and whatever else we feel guilty about to get us to destroy our very own civilization. And they want to replace it with Sharia. They want to replace it with a kind of military dictatorship that Muhammad himself established in the town of Mecca in 622 AD. It's as simple as that. And anybody who follows the verse of the sword and lays in wait and ambush for them, meaning unbelievers, and kills us unbelievers, is on an express ticket to paradise.
You know, during President Obama's speech or the press conference this afternoon, with his determined way of putting things, it was nice to see him a little bit alive today when he was talking. He was saying, well, so what are we supposed to do? Stop all Muslims, or, just... I forget how he phrased it, but something triggered something in my mind that during World War II, weren't there Japanese internment camps in the United States?
Yes, there were. And a Supreme Court decision said that they were constitutional, which was one of the most bizarre things I can possibly imagine.
Right.
But it is the very ghost of those concentration camps, the very idea that we would do that to our Muslim communities, that haunts a lot of people and keeps them from thinking logically about Islam, because you don't have to go that far. I mean, simply monitoring what goes on in mosques.
Or is Donald Trump right when he says no more Muslims can come into America?
Well, I agree with him. I hate to say I agree with Donald Trump about anything at all on planet Earth. But I agree with him that this is a problem, because this religion is a time bomb, because it was built for global conquest by Muhammad himself, and it was built for global conquest through what he called torture and through what he called slaughter. And he said, thou shalt not take prisoners until thou hast made great slaughter in the land. That's, in an age of nuclear weapons, that's a chilling thought.
Certainly is. Howard, as always, whenever you're with us, my good friend, time goes by so fast. We've got about 30 seconds for you and I to chat. What's your final message tonight for the X-Zone Nation, Howard?
Well, don't get paranoid. If you have Muslim friends, clasp them dearly to your heart, but support them in standing up for freedom, tolerance, pluralism, and freedom of speech.
Howard, you take care of yourself, my good friend. Be safe in the Big Apple, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X-Zone. Until then, thank you and blessings.
Thanks, Rob.
Exonation, Howard Bloom, www.howardbloom.net. Well, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. So until then, my good friends, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.